We'll tell you.
I believe we're going to win. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen.
Also ahead, the latest polling on the presidential race is surprising. Lou Dobbs, Geraldo, Eric Bolling, and Dana Perino all have some thoughts. Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. An embarrassing situation at the Al Smith dinner in New York City last night, and that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. The dinner is sponsored by the Catholic Archdiocese of New York, primarily to raise money for poor children. The bad news is the keynote speakers, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, were way too harsh, and they embarrassed Cardinal Timothy Dolan. No way to spin it. It was not a good evening. Al Smith was the first Catholic ever to run for president. He lost to Herbert Hoover in 1928. His family puts together this charitable event every year. It's supposed to be a lighthearted night. And 4 years ago, President Obama and Mitt Romney understood that.
As President Obama surveys the Waldorf banquet room with everyone in white tie and finery, you have to wonder what he's thinking. So little time, so much to redistribute.
I'm still making the most of my time in the city. Earlier today, I went shopping at some stores in Midtown. I understand Governor Romney went shopping for some stores in Midtown.
Until you can see the ribbing was gentle. Last night it was nasty. Seize the moment and be gracious when she came up. That would have helped her. She didn't really need to do anything else other than keep it light. That would have contrasted with Mr. Trump. Did was more like a roast, not an amiable benefit. Before the speeches began, I was able to see both Trump and Clinton up close. I was about 5 feet away from them. It was clear to me that neither wanted to be at the event. Understandable. They had to be tired coming off that debate. It was also clear that they despise each other at a level rarely seen in national politics. I kind of felt sorry for Cardinal Dolan, a friendly guy who did a nice job sitting between the two, trying to keep us. It's not anything that will linger, but for me, a voter, not a commentator. I have to question the judgment here. Both candidates had their scripts written for them. They saw what was happening, yet they chose to go the hard way. Why? Why? Again, the evening was to raise money for poor kids. That's it. Judgment is important for a president. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, here is the man of the week, Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace from D.C., who received many accolades, probably too many, for moderating the debate. Before we get to that, what do you think of this Al Smith thing? Very strange, isn't it?
Well, I watched it live on Fox. It was strange. I've been covering these things since 1980. I remember Carter and Reagan. And as you say, there's some ribbing, and maybe there's a little bit of an edge to it, but it stays within some bounds. The only thing I disagree with your talking point is that I thought that while they both went a little too far, I thought Trump went way too far. His comments about she's corrupt and she got fired from the Watergate committee and that she's lying because she's pretending she doesn't hate Catholics, that was really in bad taste. Clinton, maybe a little bit tough, but just up to the line. As far as Trump is concerned, he stomped all over the line and went into the next county.
Okay, I disagree a little, not vehemently. Hillary Clinton's speech was not well received by a friendly audience. That audience was friendly to her. It was not a well-received speech at all. You can get a lot of laughs, didn't deliver it well, wasn't looking like she was having a fun time. You're right, the hate Catholic thing, that was bad.
And they openly booed him, Bill.
And they booed her,
we're talking about a charity dinner, and they were
No, they
booing.
booed him. They booed him, no doubt about it, and they were heckling him and yelling at him. But they booed her, too, on 2 occasions. And again, it was a very friendly, pro-Hillary crowd. But the degree on which both of them exercised poor judgment, I think, is disturbing. Do you disagree with that?
No, I completely agree. And and maybe to a certain degree, I was more shocked by Trump because he went first, and this was so far beyond the bounds. I mean, the clips you played of Romney and Obama from 4 years ago, that's the kind of ribbing you get at this dinner.
Right.
And look, people say, what difference does it make? It's a dinner. They all look foolish in their white ties. But the fact is, it's part of the glue that holds the country together. Yeah, we fight on the issues, but, there's more that unites us than divides us, and you sure didn't feel that last night.
There isn't, not anymore. There's not more that unites us and divides us anymore. And whoever wins this election is going to go in as the most unpopular president-elect in history of this country. In the history, even more unpopular than Andrew Johnson after he took over for Abraham Lincoln and was assassinated. All right, let's get to Las Vegas. I'm more interested in what you saw behind the scenes and the tempo of it. My posture, as I just said, is that they hate each other, Clinton and Trump. You pick that up?
Oh, yeah. There's an old saying that the great football announcer Keith Jackson, when he was talking about a big rivalry game, would say, these two teams just plain don't like each other. And I had that distinct feeling from the moment they walked out on the stage and very pointedly refused to shake hands to the end when, at least in the second debate, they shook hands at the end. No, they didn't. And when Hillary Clinton came up to thank me, Trump very pointedly at the end stayed behind his podium. He didn't want to breathe the same air or get anywhere near Hillary Clinton, and he only came up to me after she had left.
Now, what did Secretary Clinton say to you?
Well, it was funny. She said two things. First of all, thank you. Very pleasant. But the other thing was that as opposed to the other debates, there was a barrier that kept the families from walking up onto the stage. So Bill and Chelsea couldn't get to her. And she said to me, do you think it's okay if I go down there? And I said, Secretary Clinton, I think you can do whatever you want. And she went down. So that was very simple. With Trump, a little bit longer conversation. He said he thought I did a good job and that it was the best of the debates. He seemed in quite a good mood at the end.
Okay, now, taking out the rigged election thing, taking that off the table, all right, did both of them, in your opinion, answer your questions, or did they dodge? And if so, who dodged the most?
Well, I mean, did they answer my questions? That is the most rhetorical question you've ever asked on this show, Bill. Of course they didn't answer my questions. Sometimes they did, and sometimes they dodged like crazy. And I would have to say Hillary dodged more than Trump did, especially when it came to the question about the Clinton Foundation. And this is, incidentally, gives you an insight into the difficulty of being a moderator. So I asked her the question, which I think was perfectly legitimate, about you promised that there'd be no conflict of interest, but in fact wasn't this pay to play? And she quickly said, no, of course it isn't. And then she said, but let me tell you about the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, that's her line, right.
I knew where we were headed there. Right. But then you're in a position as a moderator, as she's talking about helping needy kids and sick kids and stuff, how do you cut that off? And the answer was, after about 10 or 15, 20 seconds, when it was obvious to me and I thought to the audience that she was ducking, I then interrupted. But she dodged more. Sometimes he just didn't answer the question, but I don't think he was dodging.
Okay. I'm going to give Chris 2 more minutes than originally scheduled because I have more questions for him. All right. Now, in the debate itself, Hillary Clinton spoke 6 more minutes than Donald Trump. Were you aware of that when it was going on?
No. They had said to me, the debate commission, that they'd let me know. But I will say afterwards, because I expressed some concern about that, it was the case that sometimes, for instance, in those 2-minute answers where they were given 2 minutes, uninterrupted at the beginning of each topic, he didn't fill up his time.
No,
so yes, part of that was she talked more, and sometimes he just seemed to run out of things to say.
Right. She never ran out of things to say, but he did.
Oh, no.
And I said that yesterday because I watched very closely. In the sequence with the puppets, I thought that was infantile. I would have said that if I were the moderator. Did it ever occur to you to say, that's kind of juvenile what you guys both did?
No. Look, one of the things I'll say is I had prepared very, very, as anybody would, in depth. I had my questions. I honed my questions. I was rewriting them on Wednesday. I had cheat sheets of little facts, so that I'd be able to back up anything that I asked. But you're making decisions And even as much as we do this on this show, when you're there with the two presidential candidates and they're arguing with each other and they each have their agenda, you have to make a lot of snap decisions on the fly, instinctual decisions.
Right.
Am I going to get in here? Am I not going to get in there? If they were going to be infantile, God bless them. Let them be infantile.
All right,
that's
so you just let them hang themselves. But I mean, that's different. Well, everybody says you did a good job, so now you're really going to be insufferable. You're going to be strutting around and, hey, I'm Chris.
You want to know something?
Yeah.
I have too much of my dad in me. I enjoyed it for about half of the plane ride home from Las Vegas, and then I started thinking, I got to book a show for Sunday. It's right. As you know, no matter how well or badly we do, the real reaction is next. What do I got to do next?
Your father would have hot dogged it. But I'll tell you one thing, and I don't want you to reply. Your father would be very proud of you, Chris. And I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Next on the Rundown. Some very surprising presidential polling and bowling, and Rivera will analyze. And later, we'll talk to Lou Dobbs, Dana Perino, John Stossel about the election up ahead.
Local listings.
Campaign 2016 segment tonight. Some national polling out today. Investors Business Daily has a race essentially tied. Trump 41, Clinton 40 in a four-way. Rasmussen also has a race tied. Trump 43, Clinton 41 within a margin of error. These are the two latest polls, and I'm surprised. With us now here in New York City, Eric Bolling and Geraldo Rivera. What say you, Rivera?
I'm surprised, but they are outliers. They're not mainstream polls. A
lot of folks, though.
The sampling changed, the methodology, and all the rest of it. It may not represent what's really going on. I still think the real clear average of polls is the way to go. You have to average to weed out the mathematical discrepancies.
About
and
six.
It's Hillary plus 6.
Yeah.
But I think that in some ways it's like when we were kids and taking castor oil. The voters for Hillary, even though she is preferred right now, they're going like this.
There's not a lot. It's not a lot of
enthusiasm.
No.
Trump has a lot of enthusiasm, smaller base.
I'd like to also point out that when you have a poll that has one candidate leading by 6 and a margin of error of 4, that's within the margin of error. So you do the same to both sides. I think any other election, Hillary Clinton would have thrown the towel in by now because of the WikiLeaks and the Project Veritas videos. I mean, this is damning stuff. When the DNC is hiring thugs to create problems in events.
It may be damning to you and the people who are watching The Factor right now. But most people, they don't have any idea. The media doesn't cover this to any great extent.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. What the media has done has been so biased in favor of her. They'll talk about everything Trump does instead of these issues these issues would disqualify Hillary Clinton in any other year.
He disqualified himself when the Access Hollywood tape came out, even though it was 11 years old. That is an issue that everybody grasped. That lost him the women's vote, and that's where the war will be.
Do you think that's more important than exposing quid pro quos with the Clinton Foundation?
Are you talking about under God or, in some cosmic sense? Or are you talking
about the American people looking at who do I want to run the country for the next 4 years? Someone who's lied,
the women vote. Someone who's said some nasty things. I don't believe that Hillary Clinton, is very popular among even people in her own party. She just doesn't. It's not Barack Obama.
She's only more popular than one person, the person she's running against.
If that's so, the further away you get from the Access Hollywood stuff, the further away you get from the salacious business, the more that wears down.
I agree.
Okay, so you got 2 weeks left, essentially, in this race.
She's running out the clock to a certain extent.
Do you think she can?
It depends on how many more, the bimbo eruptions, to use the phrase against Bill Clinton.
There was one yesterday, nobody paid attention to it.
They're paying enough attention to keep the undercurrent that Donald Trump is a predator. I think that if you keep that buzz,
obviously,
it's like a toothache. It's very difficult to
The Fox
ignore.
News poll asked not that question, but essentially, and half the country says doesn't care. Do you think that within 2 weeks, this race can change so that Hillary Clinton is behind when we go to vote?
Of course it can change.
What do you mean?
Well, first of all, Donald Trump earlier today had a rally where he outlined some great ideas. If he sticks to the ideas, he talked about a national.
So you don't think the perceptions now are in stone?
Bill, you just said it yourself. It's the American public has an attention span and a memory of about 5 minutes, let alone 5 days or 18 days left in the race. Anything can happen. I'm not saying that the polls are going to flip. I'm saying there's a lot of things that are going to happen between now and then.
And then we're going to have more WikiLeaks stuff, too.
They decide to vote for Trump, even though they won't say they will.
As long as we all agree this would be the biggest political comeback in the history of the planet.
According to what?
If it
polls?
happens. Well, this was bigger than Truman Dewey. This is the hugest. If he were to come back, it would be to come out of
where he's
nowhere.
leading. Yeah, 2 polls.
These polls have.
Well, let's wait for the mainstream
right.
polls which come out today.
Thank you,
like
gentlemen.
Fox News. Take Fox News.
Directly ahead, Lou Dobbs has been a big Trump supporter. Is he happy with the way things are going right now? Then Stossel, the libertarian guy, can he support Gary Johnson, who, to put it kindly, doesn't really seem to know very much? Those reports after these messages. Tonight, Lou Dobbs, a supporter of the Trump campaign. So how's it going, Lou? He joins us now. Are you happy with the way the debates turned out? Let's take this for the debates.
I think the debates turned out absolutely perfectly. He won the last 2. I think it was a 2-to-1 series of debates. I think he has engaged the American public on the issues that are important to the nation, and that hasn't happened in a presidential election since 1980.
See, I give you the second debate. I think Trump won the second debate. The third one, he was ahead, and then he did the rig thing.
The rig thing is one of the brightest things that he could have done.
To his base.
For his base.
Yeah.
This is a country.
But he needs more than his base.
Well, it is, I think, an absolute stroke of genius what he's done, because he is dominating the airwaves, the web, and newspapers that still exist with the story of why this is a rigged election.
All right, so you say that even though he's getting pounded by the media.
Yes, right? By the liberal media particularly.
Yeah, which is 80% of it, Lou.
Yep, absolutely.
Right, let's be honest. That it's not a bad thing because he is now the center of attention again, which he loves.
Well, he loves that.
Right, and she is gone. And you think that's a positive?
I think what is a positive is that there is now, there's an insistence on an accounting. The Democratic Party in this country had to replace their 3 top officers because they rigged an election against one Bernie Sanders. They chose the nominee.
But there were other reasons why they were dumped.
As you will, but they're marginal. The main reason is because they're corrupt.
That was the superdelegate thing that we. But let me ask you this:
that.
You know Jeff Bezos?
I do know Jeff.
Do you know him personally, by the way?
I've met him.
Well, you hobnob with those people.
Yeah.
He's the head of Amazon, and he bought the Washington Post.
Yes,
He comes out today, and he smashes Trump. Just smashes him.
Have you been reading his paper?
Yes.
The Washington Post has 7 attack pieces on him every day.
I understand that, but he did it on the rig business. And my analysis the other night was that Trump was winning that debate, all right, on the issues, and didn't have to give the hammer to the people who hate him.
The people who hate him, Bill, as you well know, are going to hammer him whatever
but that's
he does.
Big one.
This way, he is dominating and insisting that people come to a conclusion about whether or not the system is rigged. You can't dismiss what the Democratic Party did.
Do you think
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the head of the Democratic
is rigged,
let me just finish this.
The election
this is important. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the top official.
Yeah.
Was replaced. And where is she today? She's the chairman of Hillary's campaign. Why would you trust them?
They just want to win. They don't care about credibility.
Well, that's what he wants to do, and only it's considered a liability when he wants to win.
There's a difference between the system is rigged and the election is rigged, right?
I don't think so in this instance,
No?
because the system is the establishment. The Democratic Party represents the establishment. Hillary Clinton is the establishment.
Yes.
She has a series of utter scandals that are unprecedented in our history. She was not charged when...
We all know that, but what's the point?
The point being, she represents the establishment, and you're seeing that reflex from the establishments, the elites of both political parties, attacking Donald Trump.
And you think that'll mobilize the people who don't like it?
I think absolutely.
Like so you're predicting now tonight that Trump will win?
I will predict this, that the margin in this race is going to be so close.
But then it's going to be rigged.
No,
you know, if it's close, then everybody gets sued.
No, what I'm saying is I think he prevails.
You do?
And
he's going to win?
And I think, yes, I do think he's going to win.
All right.
And I think the reason is largely because he's focused people's attention on the fact that WikiLeaks is now the institution in this country honoring the people's right to know.
Well, we got you on tape, Dobbs.
I was afraid of that. I was afraid of that.
All right. Plenty more ahead as the factor moves along this evening. Younger American voters, do they know anything? I'll have a shocking report for you. And Dana Perino on her former boss, President Bush the Younger, how he handled things like the Al Smith dinner. I hope you stay tuned for those reports.
Another cybersecurity breach impacting the U.S. today. A series of attacks on an internet firm known as Dyn Inc. disrupted several popular websites, including Twitter, Netflix, and PayPal. The company says its servers were swamped with junk traffic, making it impossible for many users to log on. A group of hackers from China and Russia are taking responsibility, but their claims haven't been confirmed. And ISIS attacking the Iraqi city of Kirkuk this morning. A likely attempt at diverting Iraqi forces from their mission to reclaim Mosul. Multiple explosions and gunfire echoed through a neighbor as town militants stormed a power plant. At least 14 people were killed in those series of attacks. Breaking news throughout the night. I'm Trace Gallagher. Now back to the O'Reilly Factor.
Impact segment tonight on Monday. Jesse Waters will have a report on how younger voters are seeing the presidential election. Tonight, a similar theme. A group called Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation has released a report on American attitudes towards socialism and communism. Study found that 32% of millennials, a third of them, believe more people were killed under George W. Bush than the Russian tyrant Joseph Stalin. Is that amazing? Also, only 42% of millennials, Americans born in the 1980s, have a favorable view of capitalism. And 46% they vote for a socialist like Bernie Sanders. Joining us from Washington, Marion Smith from the Foundation. Were you surprised by the findings here, Mr. Smith?
Unfortunately, we weren't really surprised. Over 2 years, we've been educating Americans, and especially younger Americans, about the now almost 100 years of history since the first communist regime burst forth on the world stage in 1917 with the Bolshevik Revolution. Since that time, 100 million people killed in nearly 40-some communist regimes around the world. And we found that most people found that these numbers were shocking, and many didn't even believe them. Well, so we suspected it was a problem.
Yeah, well, let's get into George W. Bush and Stalin. If you don't know who Joseph Stalin is, he was a dictator in Russia, Soviet Union, during World War II. He killed millions of people, so many people that they can't count them because there was no reporting on it, and it was just mass slaughters that Stalin undertook. To compare him to Bush the younger is so absurd, it's painful. So that tells me that the U.S. educational system, the public school system, is just that they're not teaching anything.
Well, we have a sort of withering critique of the American free enterprise system and of our own U.S. history. And at the same time, millennials, and I don't want to be too hard on them, I am one, are finding sort of a difficult job environment as they graduate from college and enter the workforce. Our poll also found that there were more people my age, the millennial generation, who thought our economic system worked against them rather than for them.
Right.
And some 46% would vote for a socialist. One generation younger than us, those who are in high school now, half of them would vote for a socialist, and 1 in 5 would vote for a communist.
But they don't even know what socialism is, most of them. And I want to get back to my question about not knowing who Stalin is. Stalin was as bad as Hitler. All right, it's the same thing. He just killed different groups of people, and it didn't get reported because there was no Allied invasion into Russia to expose these gulags. And you walk down, and people your age, they don't know Stalin, they don't know World War II, they don't know anything. So how can they make responsible decisions about any economic system now? How is it possible?
Well, it's right. I mean, what you see is a willingness to almost blow up our own system rather than try to perfect it and refine it. In favor of something that we don't understand, which is socialist systems, the ideas of Marxism. And it is a dangerous thing, especially because there's a sort of whitewashing of the term socialism, which really historically and intellectually is intertwined with communism.
Sure. It's the same kind of government runs the show. Communism is more... they confiscate more, like the Castro brothers, as opposed to some socialist nations that don't confiscate property, but they confiscate income. Mr. Smith, a fascinating study. Thank you. When we come right back, Dana Perino on her former boss, President Bush the younger, how he handled personal attacks. And Stossel, can he vote for the Libertarian candidate who doesn't know very much? Moments away. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly. In the Fact or Follow-Up segment tonight, as we told you in the Talking Points memo, the Al Smith dinner last night here in New York was embarrassing, as both Clinton and Trump did not get into the true spirit of things. In 2000, then candidate George W. Bush, running against Al Gore, attended that dinner.
Thank you all very much. This is an impressive crowd, the haves and the have-mores. Some people call you the elite. I call you my base. The guy on the elevator, we're coming down. He said, "Say." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Anybody ever tell you look like George W. Bush?" I said, "Yeah, it happens quite a bit." He said, "Sure must make you mad."
Perfect, right? Here now, Dana Perino, who was White House press secretary under President Bush. Quite the contrast, huh?
Yes. The humorous speeches are some of the hardest ones to give, and President Bush put a lot of effort into it. There were White House speechwriters, of course, but sometimes for like a White House Correspondents' Dinner or a roast like the Al Smith dinner, you go to a separate speechwriter, maybe outside, and contract it out because it's such an important one. And the goal is to make everybody feel comfortable and to have that moment of levity. And you see the people behind, and you can hear the out loud laughter, those belly laughs. That's kind of what you want to go for, to make everyone feel comfortable and enjoyable. And last night, apparently, that's not what you saw.
No, not at all. Did he, President Bush, have input into the speech? Did he?
Yes, and he spent a lot of time actually practicing those speeches. So,
he practiced them.
So the State of the Union speech, that's one where you would go into the family theater that's in the East Wing of the White House, and he would get up there and he would deliver the State of the Union, and I always like to say, okay, stop. You know, he might, as he was going through and saying it out loud, edit, but he did the same for the humorous speeches because those were the most. Those are some of your most important minutes.
Because I don't believe, well, I think Hillary Clinton rehearsed hers. I don't think Trump rehearsed his.
Right.
Because
the timing's important.
Well, he was looking at, you can see it, he was very rarely looking up. He was just reading everything. She was a little bit more. But as I said in the Talking Points memo, and I don't want to belabor the issue, but this is about judgment. They saw this. They knew what these lines were, both of them, you know. And anybody was, you know what, that's not what this is about. You don't want to embarrass the cardinal. And it was funny because like President Bush the younger or not, he was always appropriate. Now, I know he had the training from his dad and his family and a traditional, and you got to cut Trump a little slack because he hasn't had none of that. He's a hard scrabble guy in real estate. It's a big difference. But President Bush, to me, was always appropriate. And I remember my interview with him in the Oval Office. You weren't working for him then. Tony Snow was the guy.
No, I was working there. I was a deputy. Yes,
okay, well,
I was behind the scenes.
You were hiding.
Well, I'm pretty short.
But I kept pounding Bush about why don't you fight back about these people who are sliming you and slandering you? Why do you continue to take it? Because then it becomes in the public a truism. And he just said, look, it's not my job. I don't respond to that.
Well, in the and I remember watching you at the time, and I would ask myself, like, why aren't we punching back harder?
Yeah.
But partly it was that when I was at the podium giving the press briefing, and Tony Snow felt the same, that if you were saying something that you thought George W. Bush would not be proud of, you swallowed it. You didn't say it. And I remember after I left the White House, I gave a speech to a large group in Washington, D.C., and I told a joke about President Obama that I thought was funny, and all of my friends would have laughed. My husband would have thought it was great. And no one in the room laughed. And it made me feel, I still feel uncomfortable about that moment, and I've never done it since.
Okay. And mentioning President Obama, he's one of the best at giving those kinds of funny speeches. Now, he's a little edgier than Bush the younger is.
Do you remember, and you did a segment on this not too long ago, when President Obama gave the White House Correspondents' speech after the whole birth certificate issue, and Donald Trump was there.
Trump, right.
And Donald Trump was not happy about being treated that way. You can make a point in these speeches, and you can get news out of them. But hopefully what you do is be respectful to the cardinal, raise money for the kids, and have a moment of levity that tries to lift the country up.
The Correspondents' Dinner is a little bit different than the Al Smith dinner. The Al Smith dinner is just fun. Correspondents' Dinner, they want to make their points. Yeah, they won't like that. All right, Dana. And I want to plug your book. Dana Perino, everybody, has a new book. It's about a dog. All right? It's called Let Me Tell You About Jasper, How My Best Friend Became America's Dog. There's Jasper. You can tell. He's got makeup on, Jasper, sitting next to Dana. Now, you're going to like the book. It's available everywhere, so please check it out. All right. Stossel on deck. As you know, he's a libertarian, but can he vote for Gary Johnson, who doesn't really know very much? Stossel is next. Here now, libertarian John Stossel. So, You know, the gaffes that the governor has made. Everybody makes them. But those were big gaffes, especially the one about, you know, the question was, give me any leader, foreign leader you admire. Anyone. And he couldn't do it. So you can't vote for him, can you?
Yes. Well,
you can?
I can't vote for the other two.
No.
They're bad people.
Really? You think they're both bad people?
Yes.
Really? Dark hearts, huh?
Well, both are ruthless, ambitious, ignorant, selfish, grasping, power-mad people.
Wow.
That makes them bad people to me.
Good night, everybody. No, we can't do the show anymore. All right. So now,
you say Johnson doesn't know anything, but that's unfair.
No, he doesn't.
He looked dumb in those situations.
No, he doesn't know anything about foreign policy. Nothing. All right?
Well, libertarians don't want to try to run other countries.
Okay, so that's good. So if you vote for him and he wins, which is going to happen, but say he did, and then he gets into office, ICE is the happiest people in the world. They're the happiest campers ever because Gary Johnson doesn't know what to do with them. He's not going to get involved, as you just said, all right, with them. They're going to do whatever they want, and then we'll just have to take it.
Unfair. He's not going to create new terrorists by bombing every country, as Hillary wants to do and Trump may want to do. And he will have people with foreign policy expertise in charge.
But he won't do it because his philosophy as a libertarian is we don't intervene overseas. Let them do what they want.
We intervene if we're attacked. Right.
All right,
otherwise,
so we wait to be attacked, which we certainly will be. All right, and then he has to find out where Aleppo in Syria is. He doesn't even know where it is.
He knows where it is. That question came out of nowhere. They were talking American politics, and suddenly he says, so what are you going to do about Aleppo?
And he thought it was dog food.
Well, I would have thought, what, a leopard?
Okay.
I mean, it came out of
cut him that
Mars.
slack. You notice I didn't use the clip to embarrass him. I didn't do that to the governor.
I appreciate that.
I'm covering the slack. But when you say to the guy, give me one foreign leader that you respect and why, and he can't give you one, that means he knows nothing.
He
Zero.
just couldn't pull up a name. What he should have said is, we don't admire foreign leaders.
Name. That's like saying, give me one movie star that you think is talented. Oh,
on the spot, when you admire, most of these guys are also power mad.
Okay,
as a libertarian, we don't.
Winston Churchill or somebody.
Base the ass living.
Well, then he said, I don't like any of the living, but I like Winston.
Could have done
All
that.
right. Now, all I know about Gary Johnson is he ran New Mexico okay. They're not thrilled with him down there, and he's not going to carry the state. All right. But he was all right. And then he likes pot. He's a pot guy. That's pretty much it, right? What else is there to recommend him?
A two-term governor in a Democratic state, elected,
who's not going to carry that state this time around.
Well, now people vote for the Republican or
Why?
Democrat.
If they love him,
because
why
it's
would they
habit in America.
Oh, stop.
And maybe he'll carry the state.
He won't.
He vetoed 700 bills. He had a good fiscal record. He knows more about governing and growth than Trump or Clinton do.
Yeah. So you believe that despite the pot thing, that he does have an economic vision that would help the country?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I'd much rather have a guy smoking weed than drinking alcohol.
But look, the state dinners, they'll be so different with the bongs on every plate, you know.
No, it's not getting crazy.
No, I'm not getting
here.
crazy, but he's a pot guy.
He says, this is the intoxicant I like.
Right.
I choose not. I haven't had a drink in 28 years.
Right.
It's much more damaging. And I agree.
You know, just the White House and the strobe lights and all of that. The hard rock music.
Better than Donald and Hillary by far.
Stossel, there he is, everybody. And you can catch him on the Fox Business Network right after The Factor, 9 p.m. Factor tip of the day. I'm taking my own advice on smear merchants. The tip, moments away.
Easy healthy.
Factor tip today, what to do about smear merchants in a moment. But first, this weekend would be a great time to start shopping, as the next 2 months will be a blur. I can sign copies of all the Killing books for you, including the latest, Killing a Rising Sun. Signed books make fabulous gifts, as you know, and they're pretty inexpensive. If you become a BillO'Reilly.com premium member, you get any book free, plus free copy of Lise Wheel's new effort, The Candidate, plus a copy of the Constitution. So there, how can you not do this? Now the mail. Janet, I'm withholding her last name, Georgia. Bill, I would like to know how you, in good conscience, can attend a dinner where Hillary Clinton is a guest. Both you and Cardinal Dolan are a disgrace to the Catholic faith in the eyes of God. Well, Janet, since you seem to be the spokesperson for God, can you get him to come on The Factor? That would clear up a lot of stuff. John Dowd, Sturbridge, Massachusetts. Bill, your reporting was not fair to Donald Trump. You left out the fact that Al Gore challenged the vote in 2000. That was after the fact, not before the election, John. This is no comparison. Richard Lamb, Oakley Fife, Scotland. I think Miller is spot on, saying the boat has sailed for America. 4 more years of the same will ruin you. Nick Parrish, Anaheim, California. Miller said a very profound thing. The left believes in cradle-to-grave entitlements. They just make it hard to get to the cradle. Excellent line, Nick. John Williams, Hawley, Texas. O'Reilly, why bother having folks on the factor? You do all the talking. I think Waters should take over. So do I, John. I want him to take over. Waters, could you handle it? No, he's not here. Bob Miley, Roswell, Georgia. While reading Killing the Rising Sun, I could not help but see a parallel between the 1940s Japanese and today's ISIS. Their barbaric actions and suicide missions are the same. Valid comparison, Bob. Jack Kulich, Bentonville, Arkansas. Could not stop reading Killing the Rising Sun until 1 a.m. I felt like I was with the Marines as they invaded Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Also, I felt like I was on the ground when the atom bomb dropped. And that is our technique. Dugard and I, Jack, want to put you, the reader, into the action. Jason Haynes, St. Mary's, Pennsylvania, just became a BillO'Reilly.com premium member. Can't wait for my free books to arrive. Should be there this weekend, Jason. We appreciate you signing on. And finally tonight, the factor tip of the day. Recently, I told you it's better to ignore small, annoying stuff. Remember that? So now I'm following my own advice. The Washington Post pays a guy to blog who simply attacks Fox News all day long. All right? They pay the guy to do that. Now, the problem is sometimes his garbage, and it is garbage, is picked up by other outlets. Latest is an attack on killing Reagan, and I'm ignoring it. But Martin Dugard, my co-author, is not ignoring it. So if you care at all, and I'm sure you don't, you can go to BillO'Reilly.com and link on over to Marty's response, which is on our publisher's website. By the way, the movie Killing Reagan, big success with viewers, and that's why these attacks happen. Anything to diminish me and the success that we're having here. And that is a factor tip of the day. If you can ignore it, ignore it. So it's in. And that is it for us tonight. Please check out the Fox News Factor website, which is different from BillO'Reilly.com. Also, we'd like you to spout off about the Factor from anywhere in the world. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com, O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. Name and town if you wish to opine. Word of the day, do not be umbrageous. What a great word. Do not be umbrageous when writing to the Factor. Now, we have 7 more shows before the vote. 7. No, wait. No, more than that. We have 11 more shows before the vote. Next week, and we're going to start to home for your Don Imus out there, home in on real specifics and watching the polls, the Electoral College, all of that. We're going to do a special Sunday night show of the week the election takes place. So stay with us every night because we're going to have the cutting edge. No spin here, no rooting, no endorsements, just the facts, all right? We appreciate you guys watching. We're having historic ratings. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Please remember that the spin stops here because we are definitely looking out for you.